Hey everybody, it's Bishop Cap again. We are on part number 12 of our Self-Reliance videos. Last time we talked about baby step number 3, save 3 to 6 months of expenses in a fully funded emergency fund. Baby steps 1, 2, and 3, so that's $1,000, pay off your debt, then 3 to 6 months of expenses, as we've been talking about. Those three require intense focus. And really, we talked about that gazelle intensity, like, get run, get away. That whole thought should permeate steps 1, 2, and 3. Once you get into step 4, you can kind of relax a little bit. Now, don't obviously jump off the bandwagon of self-reliance, but you want to relax and then begin stepping into your more long-term plans. 4 through 7 are really long-term. And so let's kind of talk about investing and why that's important and why it's baby step number 4. Now, up to this point in the baby steps, you should be focusing all of your energy on the first 3, which means even if you were contributing to a 401k, you could have hit pause to pay off your debt and save up your 3 to 6 months of expenses. The reason you can do that is if you're really hitting it hard, then you can use that extra money to get those done faster. At max, those will be 3 years getting out of debt and getting 3 to 6 months of expenses if you really get after it. If you're going to not get that serious about it and not put some end dates and some target goals, don't stop 401k investing. But if you get gazelle intense and focus on it, that's okay. And then you can start up, because 1 year, maybe even 2 of not doing that will not mess you up in the long term. And especially 1 or 2 years of doing 4 or 5% investing is going to be less beneficial to you than being able to ramp up your investing to 15%. So going back to the baby steps, again, step number 4, invest 15% of your household income in retirement. So before on expenses, we were talking expenses for 3 to 6 months. This is your household income, 15%. So think tithing, and then half again as much more is how much you want to be investing each month into retirement. They found that doing that just gets you a big pile of cash built up, and some people recommend 10% again, but 15% really can get you set up. And so let's talk about in retirement, obviously, and is you want to be able to have enough to give you a good lifestyle, and maybe even cover like you didn't even take a pay cut when you retire, if you can afford to do that. And if you invest, you should be able to do that. And so 15% will get you to that point over an extended period of time. The key with investing here is first define what your retirement goals are. Get a very specific number and do the math. If you're not great at math, there are tools online. Chris Hogan, I've been referencing him. He's got a tool called the Retirement IQ, or the RIQ. You can just Google that. He'll tell you exactly how much you'll need to be investing each month to get to that point. And so, but define your goals, whatever they are for retirement. Maybe it's just having income. Maybe it's missions or travel or extra house or whatever. Doesn't really matter. Define those goals, and then you have a target to get to. The next thing is think about the priority is build up enough cash that you're living off of the investment income, not necessarily the nest egg. So you don't want to be chipping away at the core if you can be living off of the interest it makes every year. So if you have enough money out there so that it's making $100,000 a year or more, then you could live on $100,000 or whatever your number is without touching the next nest egg. Now, some of you, if you're getting started later, you might be looking at, okay, how can I just save up enough? Yeah, I'll live off of the interest if there is any, but you will slowly chip away at the nest egg. That's acceptable too. You just have to come up with a plan. Again, a financial advisor can help you come up with that type of a plan. Before I go any farther talking about this, I do want to talk about compound interest. Albert Einstein said it's the eighth wonder of the world. Compound interest, you're either making it, meaning someone's paying it to you, or you're paying it to somebody else. Debt, actually, that's why it's a big problem, is you're paying compound interest rather than receiving compound interest. So when we're investing, you'll be receiving compound interest. And I want to talk about the why and the power of it. So compound interest takes the power of time and applies it to anything you have in savings. So, for example, if you have somebody who is saving $100 a month, and they start when they're 18 years old, and they go from 18 to 26, and they quit investing but leave that money that they've invested $100 a month in, when they're 65, if they stopped at 26, that will be $1.5 million. That's the power of time and compound interest. Now, if somebody, when this person stops at 26 and somebody else starts at 26 and invests the rest of their life till they're 65, they'll never catch up to the person who started when they're 18. They would end around $1 million versus the one who started at 18 ends at about 1.5. And so time is of the essence when it comes to compound interest. Again, just to explain, to break it down simply, compound interest means, okay, if you put in $100 and you make 10% next year, or you made 10%, that means you get an extra $10. So the next year you have $110 to make 10% on, and so it would just slowly increase even if you never put extra money in, because your money is making money. You're making money as you sleep, literally. And so investing is absolutely, compound interest is absolutely essential when you're investing. So when you invest, there are certain investment types that you need to look at. They all have different areas of risk associated with them. So there, you can buy single stocks, you can buy bonds, or you can buy mutual funds. As far as the stock market, or there's also real estate. There's other types, but those are probably the four most common. So a stock is somebody in a company needs some money, and so they sell off a percentage of their company in the form of a stock, so that you can you have an invested part of their company. So if their company ever sold, you would have to get paid because you're a part owner. And so typically it's not a full percent. Companies obviously sell tens of thousands, if not hundreds of thousands of stocks in their company. But as the company makes money, the stock price goes up. That's good, but with a single stock, there's actually quite a bit of risk, because if you have all your money there and that company goes out of business, then you're out. You don't get paid anything, right? The next thing that is like stocks but less risky is mutual funds. So mutual funds, the name actually describes what it is we're mutually funding but the purchasing of stocks. So for example, I could get 5 people together, pool their money, and that way we have more money, and I can buy a little bit of that stock and a little bit of that stock, and it helps us all diversify. So if this stock goes away, but this stock makes money overall, we all make money, therefore lowering the risk. Again, it's a little more complicated than that in some aspects, but really it's pretty straightforward. And so typically you want to be investing in mutual funds because you're diversifying the risk, and you're able to have mutual funds across a lot of different options. Another thing to invest in is bonds. Bonds are sold mostly by governments, and so you have a government guarantee. They always make a much lower percentage across the board. Bonds tend to be less risky, and they often encourage people to put their money into bonds as they begin moving towards retirement. Again, it all depends on your strategy. Definitely get a financial professional involved once you get to that point. And then there's real estate. Again, real estate has its own set of risks, but typically, and you can get mutual funds that buy bonds, real estate, and stock. And so typically always go with a mutual fund. And so the investment professionals recommend you can get the average stock market makes about 7.5% to 8% in a 5-year stretch. Now, if you break that down to 3 years, it actually tends not to make as much money. But over time, the stock market has done super well, and so you can trust that if you're putting in money for the long haul, it will increase. And so typically with stocks, you want to make sure that you're buying a certain preset mix so that you can get the optimal return on your investment. Most people say you can make at least 10% in the stock market as long as you're investing correctly. So I'm going to hit pause. Actually, I'm going to do this as a 2-part video. So this will be part 13. I'll stop this and we'll go ahead and explain the rest of investing next time. Thanks.